Hello everyone, my name is Chloe Mayhew and today we're going to be talking about nonverbal communication. So what is nonverbal communication? Well, to start off, why don't I give you an example? If I were just laying up here and I were talking to you and I said, hey, it's Chloe, today we're going to talk about nonverbals and yeah, that really wouldn't have the same impact as the way I'm talking to you now. So let's get down to business. So there are 7 different types of nonverbal communication. The first type is kinesics, and you may have heard of kinesiology. Well, kinesics and kinesiology are pretty much the same thing. And kinesics is the study of body language, how we use our bodies, how we move our heads and our eyes and making eye contact and leaning forward, our posture and our gestures. Then we have appearance. Now, if I had come in here and I had just gotten done with a workout and I was sweaty and my hair was pulled back and it was a mess and I was wearing an old t-shirt that had holes in it and it was just gross, it really wouldn't have the same impact as the way I'm dressed now. My hair's nice, it's brushed, I'm not dressed like a bum, things like that. Then we have vocalics, and vocalics is something that's very interesting because it runs the gamut from using fillers like to accents, to voice inflection, to how we, whether we're monotone and we talk like this and we don't have any sort of inflection or anything in our voice, to just about everything like that. Everything you can do with your voice, your pitch, your tone, things like that. Then we have proxemics, and proxemics has to do with proximity, so kind of our personal space or our personal bubble. And as we know, we have different, our bubble gets a little bit bigger depending on who we're around. So there's certain people that we don't mind being close to, and there's certain people we want to stay back. Then we have haptics, and haptics and proxemics are very closely related because haptics has to do with touch. And of course, you can't touch someone unless you're a certain distance from them. So haptics is a very interesting study, especially in education, because there is a large difference between ages and or grades and how much you touch a student. So for example, if you're a kindergarten teacher, you're probably going to touch your students a lot more. You know, you may hug them, you may have to help them tie their shoes or open a milk carton or tap them on the shoulder and say good job. Whereas if you teach in a college, it's not as likely that you're going to touch your students. Or if you do, it's going to be very rare and it may just be something on the shoulder or something like that. And then we have chronemics, and like chronology or chronological, chronemics, it has to do with time. You don't want to waste someone's time by keeping them there for 45 minutes when what you told them could have taken 5. But you also don't want to just brush someone off. And then we have the environment. And the environment is something that's very interesting to me because I have experience in it. The environment has to do with how your environment affects student learning and um, how it can affect people's how they think about something or how they think about someone. Um, and I've seen this in my life before. I'm one of our youth leaders in our youth group for our teenagers, and every once in a while, just to break up the monotony, we will change around the chairs in the youth room. We have anywhere between 40 and 50 teenagers every Wednesday night, and goodness gracious, when you change the chairs up just a little bit, you should see the looks on their faces when they come in and they realize we've changed. It is like we have turned the entire room upside down. They just are asking, why did you do this? What is going on? What? And all that night they ask us all these questions, and I know it distracts them some. Um, so things like that can be very effective. And all this information comes to us from Guerrero, DeVito, and Hecht's book, The Nonverbal Communication Reader, which I highly recommend if you're interested in learning more about nonverbal communication. It really is a great read. It's very interesting. Okay, so another area of nonverbal communication we're going to talk about today is intercultural nonverbal communication. And this is interesting to me once again because I come from Averett University, which is a very small private school, and even though we're very small, significantly smaller than Liberty, we do have quite the large international student population. So this is something that's very interesting to me because this is something my teachers have had to adapt, my previous teachers have had to adapt to. Different countries are very much accustomed to different levels of nonverbal communication. And those levels are, or nonverbal communication or nonverbal immediacy. And those levels are non-immediate or low immediate, moderately immediate, and highly immediate. And the article that I looked at for this particular area was entitled Nonverbal Immediacy and Perceptions of Learning, a Cross-Cultural Survey in Turkey, USA, and China. And of those three categories of nonverbal immediacy, the USA would be the moderately immediate one. China would be the non-immediate or low immediate one, and Turkey would be the highly immediate one. And this is a very important area of study for especially college professors who will have to deal with international students their entire career. This is important for us to learn more about because we want our students to be able to understand what we're doing and what we're saying and to feel warm and welcome. And we also want to be able to understand what they're doing with their nonverbal communication. Also, something that is very interesting is nonverbal communication can not only increase in a student's liking of a teacher, but in a student's liking of the class and even a student's success in that particular class. Therefore, nonverbal communication is extremely important to student success as well as just their opinions. And then the final examples we're going to look at tonight come to us from the Bible. And I specifically wanted to discuss two examples from the Bible of nonverbal communication. The first example comes to us from Luke chapter 22. And in this passage, this is when Jesus had told Peter that before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Well, Jesus said, "Oh, no, Lord, I wouldn't do that." Well, of course we know that Jesus does. Oh, excuse me, that Peter does. He does deny Jesus 3 times before morning came. And then in Luke 22, the Bible tells us that Jesus just had to look at Peter, and Peter wept. Now, we don't know what that look was that Jesus gave him, but we can only assume that it was a look of disappointment. And I can't imagine, I know that I disappoint God every day, but I can't imagine having him, and I feel awful, but I can't imagine having Jesus literally standing there with a look of disappointment on his face. I can only imagine that's what I would do as well, is just weep. And that's what Peter did. And all Jesus had to do was give him that look. He didn't have to say anything. Peter knew what he did. And that nonverbal communication from Jesus was enough for Peter to weep. And then we have an example in John chapter 8. And this is a very famous passage. This is when the scribes and the Pharisees brought to Jesus a woman whom they caught in adultery. And this is where Jesus utters the very famous phrase, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." Well, in addition to saying that, Jesus also, he wrote on the ground. The Bible never tells us what Jesus wrote there. Bible scholars have speculated many different things, but I won't do that here. But Jesus wrote on the ground. And by Jesus just writing on the ground, that was enough. Not him saying anything, but that was just writing on the ground was enough for the scribes and the Pharisees to flee, to leave immediately. These guys were trying to tempt Jesus into condemning this woman or having them put her to death. But instead, by just Jesus doing that, engaging in that bit of nonverbal communication, that was enough for them to either feel embarrassed or ashamed or convicted, and they left. So, and there are other examples in the Bible of this as well, but those were just two that were that stood out very much to me here. Nonverbal communication is something that interests me greatly, and it's something that's very important, something that we need to be very cognizant and very purposeful in what we do. We need to make sure that our nonverbal communication matches with our verbal communication. What we do needs to match up with what we say. And that's something that's very important for us as Christians as well, that we, when we're spreading the gospel or when we're dealing with people who aren't saved, that we make sure that our lives match up with our words. We can say that we love God all that we want, but when our lives and our actions match up with it, that's when people really will take notice. And that's a challenge to you, and that's also a challenge to myself as well. So thank you all very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email or comment below. So thanks everyone. I hope you have a great evening. And if any of you are stuck up north with lots of snow, I hope you get out soon. We'll be praying for you. So thank you very much.